Welcome back to Saints Squad. I am your host, Dylan Sanders from Saints Wire. And do you know that octopuses have 3 hearts?
My name is Ross Jackson. I'm host of the Locked On Saints podcast. And did you know that I have no heart?
John Hendricks, New Orleans football, and I'm a had a yard bird burnt to a crisp and spit on that with a little bit of Tabasco sauce.
This is former Saints wide receiver Lance Moore, and the Boston Celtics are in big trouble.
Ooh.
It's the Saints Squad, sponsored by Gametime. Everything New Orleans Saints, every week. Covering all the big hits and game-changing plays from down in the Big Easy, the way only Locked On Podcast Network can. Get ready and squad up. It's the Saints Squad Show, starting now.
Howdy, Hoodad Nation. We have a great vibe already, and I hope that you have a great vibe.
Ross has no heart, though.
Ross has no heart.
No heart, but all vibes, baby.
You got no heart, man.
Welcome back to Saints Squad, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you for making us your first listen every Monday and Thursday. We have a unique group of experts here ready to bring you a fun and informative show on everything New Orleans Saints. Today, we're going to be diving into stuff like which young player is the most to prove this season? How do the Saints stack up against the rest of the NFC South? Is the pass rush going to be better? Who's going to lead the team in sacks? And who's a player on the roster bubble that you think is going to make the team? Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Who is someone that is on the brink of making the team? You don't know if they're going to make the team, but you think is going to make the team, John.
Yeah, let's jump right into it. Look, there's a couple of players that I think of, and without stealing anybody's thunder, I'm going to go with somebody who was injured last year, coming into last year, but then had done a heck of a job in rehab and stuff. I'm going to take Nephi Sewell, linebacker. I think there's a lot of opportunity in that linebacker room, right? And I think that when you look at special teams, don't matter, right? You know, there's Jalen Ford's coming off an injury. DeMarco Jackson got hurt at one point. They have Anthony Orji there. So I think even with them drafting our favorite guy, Danny Stutzman, you know, there's a lot of opportunity in that linebacker room. And I think the Saints, especially Phil Galliano, they're going to lean a lot on some of these guys to contribute on special teams. And I'm interested to see how just the tiny shifts in some of the rule changes with the kickoff rule maybe impacts the roster. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe it does. But I think Sewell's a guy who's very interesting. I mean, you look at his trajectory. He filled in at a time where they needed somebody. He's very, if you look at him, he's not the biggest guy, right? Like you look at him compared to DeMario, and obviously he's not the biggest guy, but dude plays like exceptionally well. He's very exceptionally smart and such. And so I think that when you look at him, he has an opportunity, right? And I think that he can crack the roster, not necessarily just the special teams and what he does there, but I think that he's able to also. Oh, come on, guys! What y'all doing?
No. I think you meant to say exceptionally smart. But
I've never heard of somebody being so sexually smart.
Oh, I said exceptionally. Did y'all hear something different? I said,
We definitely heard something.
Hey,
we're so sorry, but like we just couldn't get over it.
I said exceptionally sorry. If y'all heard differently, y'all gotta find
your mic did you dirty. That's all it was. Your mic did you dirty.
My mind at the gutter.
Blame the mic. Blame the mic.
Woo, man, I'm coming in hot with this one.
But yes, exceptionally smart.
Exceptionally is what I said. But anyways, that he is somebody that I just think that, again, wrap this up.
Oh, man.
It up, me.
Oh, baby.
Wrap it up.
Oh, no.
Wrap it up, me.
It must be Thursday.
It is Thursday. But anyways, again, that'd be my pick. I think he's going to somebody that can make this final roster. I think he's going to offer a little bit more in Brandon Staley's defensive attack. Maybe surprise a few people when it comes to training camp. And I said exceptionally.
He was on like the oh man, I can't. There's gonna be nothing that I can say from this point forward.
Well, okay. We can just end the show right now. So.
I feel like everything that I say is like so close to exactly that. But like he was somebody that before, like you said, before the injury, like he had a lot of momentum going his way in terms of his ability to be able to contribute and all those other things. And so do you think that like the Brandon Staley defense helps him Like that there's a fit for him there in addition to special teams?
I mean, I think that they can get creative with him for sure. I mean, he can play a little bit on the outside. I'm just curious what the vision is for somebody like him, right? That's my biggest thing is, and again, I don't know how many linebackers they're going to take. There's no more Michael Hodges there, right? They bring in Peter Sermon now. That's interesting enough as it is, but I'm just curious because this Brandon Staley defense, if you go back, look at some of the Chargers, the 49ers and stuff like that, and especially the Rams too, I think some of these smaller players have a role. And I think with Staley, the way he preaches the defense and trying to get all 11 hats and all this other stuff, I think Sewell is a player that can absolutely get into that mold. He's a little bit underrated, under the radar type thing, but I just feel like he's somebody that might actually end up making this roster.
Yeah. I'm going to switch over to the offensive side of the ball, and I'm going to go with my guy who I think is going to make the roster, but in a way that I don't think he's going to have like some crazy rookie season. I'm going to go with Moochie Dixon, and I think that he is going to play a key role in Kellen Moore's offense. And I want to point back to a guy from 2023's Chargers offense in Jalen Guyton. He played about 250 snaps. He was injured second half of the season, played about 250 snaps, only had about 10 catches, but he was used as a decoy. He stretched out the field, and he had the second highest average depth of target on the team. And I think that is something that Moochie Dixon can bring. They're both around 6 foot, low 4.3 speed. And I think that Moochie Dixon can make this offense more dynamic, even if he isn't having like a 70 catch season. And I think that is someone I look at the other people on the lower side of the team, and I think that Moochie is best equipped to do that. And I think that is how he can make the team.
Moochie is best.
Moochie is best. Moochie is an exceptional wide receiver.
I think he's got an uphill battle, and I'm curious to see how many receivers the Saints end up keeping. And
right.
Basically, like we've talked about them adding a veteran, a bigger bodied guy, right? We've talked about that on past episodes. So who does he knock off, right? Because you could probably obviously pick the top 3, and if they bring in a veteran, where does that bring Cedric Wilson Jr.? Where does that put Dante Pettis? Where does it put Bub Means? Like I'm just saying, like they maybe keep Mason Titham, six receivers maybe at most, right? And you can obviously get your practice squad. So it's like he's going to have to put in some work. He's going to have to be available, and he's going to have to catch this offense pretty fast, in my opinion, to be able to put himself in that conversation. But he can. I mean, Tipton was a guy that came out of nowhere, right? Like that's the thing. So that happens all the time.
Yep. And sometimes there's that one injury at that position that gives you more opportunities, and then all of a sudden you take advantage of that, and then bang, you're on the roster. You know what I mean? Like you never know. But yeah, it's an uphill climb for sure.
I actually kind of sort of agree with Dylan. I think there will be opportunity there, and well, but look, I agree with him, but for a different reason. Like he's talking.
There's always a caveat.
Well, he's talking about what he can do as far as stretching the field goes, and I don't think that's necessarily what this receiving group needs. I think they need somebody who can work the short and intermediate, somebody who can jump inside and win against man coverage. And watching Moochie on film, I mean, I feel like he's a guy that can jump inside and do those things, a guy that can be a third down machine that can get open. But I do think that it's going to be a pretty intense battle between him and somebody like Mason Tipton. We saw Bub Means play a little bit in the slot last year. I mean, I think it's going to be a very highly contested battle with those guys, but I would not be surprised if Moochie Dixon ends up being a guy that kind of shows that he's more than capable and somebody that they can eventually lean on during this season.
Is that the play you want to pick, or do you want to give someone else?
No, I'm actually going to go Captain Obvious with this one. Is Kendre Miller. I think that
that's a good pick.
It's going to be now or never for him. And I hope that whoever is in his corner, as far as his representation goes, as far as his veteran in the locker room, hopefully it's AK. I hope they have got him on a program, right? As far as keeping himself healthy, as far as preparing himself, as far as doing all the things necessary that lead up to when OTA start, when minicamp comes around, and then again when training camp comes around. I don't think anybody has ever denied the talent, right? Like when we've seen him on the field, he's been really good. And it's not like he's gotten, 25 or 30 carries in a game and over 100 yards. And we're like, okay, this is the future. But you see it in spurts and flashes and the way that he's able to make people miss, how strong he is, while carrying the ball. He's a fall forward guy. But I do think it's going to finally click for him. Now, obviously, there needs to be a little bit of luck associated with the guy that's got a big time injury history, finally becoming healthy regularly. But I think that this is finally the time for him to not just seize a spot and a regular on this roster, but to eventually become the heir apparent, hopefully, in that backfield for when it's time for AK to either move on or, heaven forbid, something happens to him. But he as well has missed time over the last several years. So I'm looking forward to seeing Kendre healthy and strong and doing what we know that he can do as a regular, as a part of this offense.
Love that.
He's in at OTAs. I mean, you see the videos from the Saints. He's there. He's participating. So that's a good sign. I mean,
a nice little extended catch.
Yeah.
Which was like a big thing for him. Like, he wasn't used to the receiver much at TCU. And like, that was a big thing he wanted to work on.
Yeah, that was something I always liked. I liked whenever he was used as a receiver at TCU, and I wanted them to do more of it in the NFL. And I'm glad that they're, branching out and giving him the opportunity to be a playmaker and not just, the predictable third down runs that did nothing last year.
Remember when the Saints were going, Kubiak going, run outside the
I was saying, remember when the Saints were a great screen team? They had those times that worked with Kendre. And
Lance, you remember that? Yeah, they were a great screen team.
Fantastic.
I do.
PT special, man.
Ross, who is your bubble player?
So I'm going to go with another veteran that I do think is on the bubble, but that I think still stays on that I think makes the team. So I'm kind of going the same route as John and Lance here. But I'm going to go with JT Gray. I think JT Gray is going to be in a situation where he's going to have to he's going to have to earn his spot back, which stinks because he's also coming as, a special teams captain. And typically you don't want to see that be the case with captains, but all new coaching staff, all new special teams coaching staff, though he still has the connection with Phil Galliano, which I think will help him out. And a lot of young guys that are going to be looking to contribute on special teams and that are going to be playing really hard on special teams because that will be their way to make the roster throughout training camp, right? So that's going to amp up the competition a bit. I think that because you have guys like Ugo Amadi who can play in the slot, who can play safety, and who contributes big time on special teams, everything from personal protector to coverage, all these other things. And then you have now incoming players like Jonas Sanker, not Sankey. You've got Rico Payton, you've got Isaac Yadam, all these guys that could be gunners and that can work in punt coverage. John, you were talking about the linebackers that can also contribute there. I just think that special teams is going to become this hotly contested space again, with all of this influx of young talent and with a brand new coaching staff that's looking at everybody with new eyes. Now, again, he has the Phil Galliano connection, which I think is going to help him out. I also think he has the talent, which is going to help him out. But I don't think that it's as simple as JT Gray walks in this year and he's immediately a part of the 53-man roster, that there's going to be some level of, I have to earn it, that's going to come from him. And I think that's going to be great because I think that that's a space where he thrives. He did this before as an undrafted free agent. He's done it over and over again. He earned that captain's badge and all that. I just think that it's not going to be as simple as him walking out on the field and having that space, which I think is going to be very comfortable for him. But I think ultimately he'll earn it, but he will have to earn it.
I think it's a good point. I'm sorry, Dylan. I was just going to say, I think it's a good point. I think that everybody on that roster should be a little bit uncomfortable, right? Like new coaching staff, just about there's no, I want to say loyalties, but at the same time, you should be playing for your position and your role in your job. And I don't think anything should be given. I mean, there's maybe a few positions like E. McCoy, nobody's going to take that job from him. You know what I'm saying? Or nobody's going to take Fuanga's job or anything. But I think there are some spaces on the roster this year where you look at it and say, okay, I don't think there should be we give this to you just because of what you've done here in New Orleans. No, you're trying to build a winner and compete and take back this division. You got to build the best 53 and the 16 for the practice squad. But like, again, there shouldn't be well, this guy's been doing this for years, so we just believe in what he's going to do. Like, I at least that's how I see it. I think there's a talent there. They'll rise above and all that other stuff, but that's just my mindset. So I agree on the Gray pick that he's got to do a little bit more, and he's definitely got to earn the spot.
Well, coming up next, we're going to talk about some more established players, more likely, and I'm going to tell you why a second-year player is going to perform exceptionally next season. We are running low on time to go to a college baseball game. It is one of the best vibes that you can create for yourself, sitting back, waiting for the 7th inning stretch, watching Tulane probably lose a game, but score a lot of points, or runs, I guess is the baseball term. Gametime makes it easy and fast to go to a baseball game. Even when the demand is sky high, prices on the app go down as the first pitch gets closer, and their last-minute deals can save you up to 60%. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Gametime. We are going to jump straight into the next segment with who is going to lead the team in sacks. And I'm going to go ahead and start off because I feel confident in saying that it is going to be the exact same person as last year, Brian Bresee. And not because I think that the rest of the team is going to, struggle to take the quarterback down. I just think that he's going to only be getting better. I like his presence up the middle a lot. And I think that he's going to, only, improve as a player. He's going to be used more. I think he only played around the 60% of the snaps last year. I think that's going to go up. I think that his opportunity is going to go up, but I think that he is going to make himself harder to take off of the field. And obviously you want to see him improve the run defense, but I think that is right now secondary to his pass rush ability up the middle. And I think that they've done a good job of adding more run defenders, and maybe not a perfect job of adding stout run defenders next to him, but there will be more bodies. And I think that it just opens a lane for Brian Bresee to have another great year, or an even better year than he did as a rookie.
I like that. Third year player for him. But I think that I thought he was exceptional last year. I'm really, really interested. That wasn't on purpose. I'm really interested in seeing how he's utilizing Brandon Staley's defense too. Like, does he, in those odd man fronts, does he move to like a 3-4 end, or how is he utilized in those? Because I don't think you're going to keep him off the field. I think you're going to try to find more ways for him to be on the field, I imagine would be a part of the approach with him. And so I'm really curious to see how the odd fronts impact him when they go to like 5 down linemen, and in the right situation, he's clearly got a role there. But what do they do with him with 3 down linemen, and when is it that he contributes? And then down distance game situation would all probably impact that too. But I'm really interested to see the new things he gets an opportunity to do and how he takes advantage of that.
Yeah, insert Bo Davis here. This is what I'm curious to see, because I think one of the biggest thing about Bresee that people have talked about is his playing against the run, which, granted, the entire Saints defensive front needs to play better against the run, right? We know that, but that's what I'm curious to see. And again, with, not to continue to beat this dead horse about the debacle from last year with Todd Grantham, but I think this gives them a better direction now with Bo Davis coming in here and running this defense, right? And so Bresee, man, again, in a bright spot, should your defensive tackle lead you in sacks? No, unless you're Aaron Donald, maybe that might be the only exception to the rule. But, I just think too, that he has an opportunity. And one of the things I remember hearing Brandon Staley talk about his favorite player ever, since we were talking about Rams earlier and stuff, was Aaron Donald. And I wonder if they can get Bresee, I'm not saying on a level like Aaron Donald, but I'm just saying can they give him and develop him into something that can be a little bit more fierce for this defense and something that they've missed a lot? Because again, we know this pass rush has not been good. I'm sitting here thinking, I can't remember the last person who had double-digit sacks for the team, right? Like, I don't think it was, it definitely wasn't last year. I don't think it was the year before, but like, this has been a minute since the Saints have had somebody that can get after the quarterback, right? And so, and in the times they've been led by a linebacker like DeMario leading in some aspects. So they got to get better at getting after the quarterback. I like Brzee to be able to do that, but he's got, I think the Bo Davis thing is really intriguing for me. I'll say that.
Yeah.
The last New Orleans Saint with double-digit sacks was Cam in 2021 with 12.5.
So it's been a minute.
Been a minute.
Yeah.
Hey, Marcus Davenport, y'all need to get off him. He was second that year.
With what? How many?
9.
Nine.
That's fine.
Yeah.
You know,
It's okay.
I mean, look, you get 9 sacks. You get 9 sacks 4 years in a row. You got a great contract on the way. It's just you can't just do it once. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he had 9 sacks in 4 years.
She said it in that one scene. I'm like, what? No, I don't remember him being that good.
Ross, who is your pick?
I was really close to going with like the wild card and throwing Fadil Diggs out there because I'm so high on that kid. I think that he's going to be better than you expect from a 7th round pick, but I just don't think he's going to. I looked it up. The last defensive player drafted in the 7th round to get more than 8 or more sacks. So I'm going like a half sack above Brian Brzee from last year. The last 7th round pick to do that was Carlos Hall, his rookie year in 2002 for the Tennessee Titans. And that's also the end of the list, by the way. That's also the end of the list. There was one other player, but it was like a tricky thing to where it was, tell me if anybody remembers this, Styles White. Anybody remember Styles?
Styles G.
Styles G. Yep. Styles G. White.
That's my nickname.
But the tricky part with him is that
Styles G. There you go.
That's right. The thing that was tough with, or the thing that kind of ruled him out for me was that it was in his first year. So he was a first-year player in 2007 because he hadn't accrued season. He had been on practice squads and stuff like that from 2022 through 2020 or through 2002 through 2006. And so he had been on practice squads for about almost like 4 years. And then he got those 8.5 sacks when he finally got out there. But in terms of drafted, coming in, rookie, it was Carlos Hall, and he's the only one. So I had to pivot because I just, I'd love to come out here and say that, Fadil Diggs is going to come out here and set history, but, it's a lot of expectation to put on a young man like that. So I'm not going to do that. I'll go then, instead of the long shot, I'll go chalk. And I'll bring up Chase Young in this conversation. Like, ideally, this is the situation. Ideally, you've re-signed Chase Young for 3 years after he played a fully healthy season for you in 2024. And then he comes out here in 2025 in this new Brandon Staley system that should allow him to be able to put his hand in the dirt sometimes, play that kind of like heads up 4-eye type of a situation, but then also stand up and be an edge rusher, play on the outside in those form insets and things like that. And then you immediately get from him the guy that you expect to get from him. Like, that is the ideal situation, is that Brandon Staley is able to put him in that situation to be a double-digit sack guy and be the first one since that Cam Jordan season. And so I will go with Chase Young here. I know that it's chalk, but it's what should be the case considering the investment, unless somebody else just completely goes off, which is also great. Like, if it becomes a competition between Chase Young and somebody else, also awesome. But ideally, it's Chase Young.
60 plus pressures last year. I mean,
that's right.
I mean, you got to finish. That's all.
Mm-hmm. Lance, who do you think?
Yes. So I think the uncertainty of who was going to line up where really had me kind of questioning, okay, well, does this guy fit down as in the 3-man hand in the dirt front? Is this guy going to be standing up on the edge in that 3-4 style defense? So that uncertainty took me to one place and one place only, and that's Alontae Taylor.
Whoa.
I just think like being able to play in the slot the entire season, which I'm hoping he's able to do, you cannot watch his tape from the last couple of years and be like, oh, okay, we need to just keep this guy in coverage. Like, he has to be maybe not regular rusher, but he needs to be rushing a lot in these games. He's too good. Like, he finds his way to the quarterback. He finishes plays. Like, he is a playmaker in the backfield. And I just think that hopefully Brandon Staley unleashes him and allows him to go get after the quarterback, because he's proven that he can do it. There isn't uncertainty about whether he's gonna fit in that slot role or not, right? Like, he fits, and he is one of the elite slot rushers in the National Football League. I mean, he wouldn't have had a 3-sack game if he wasn't one of those guys in the past. So, and that's not. It takes skill. It's not as simple as, okay, you're the guy that's in the slot, go rush the quarterback. Like, it is not something that comes naturally to all of those guys, but it does come naturally to him. And that's not a knock on our defensive front guys, right? It's not a knock on the D linemen or whoever are going to be the edge rushers or even the linebackers, right? Because all those guys at some point are going to be rushing the quarterback. I just think Alante is that good. And I think that it's time to finally let him go do what he does best. And that's playing the slot. And part of that is getting after the quarterback and getting sacks.
So I have numbers for this. There are 2 defensive backs that have finished a season with 8 or more sacks recently, I'll say. One of which was Adrian Wilson, one of the most underrated defensive backs, I think, in my opinion. But back in 2005, he had 8 with Arizona. And then Jamal Adams back in 2020 with 9.5. So nearly a 10-sack season with Seattle.
Yep.
Yeah. That'd be awesome. That would be awesome. John, who is your pick?
Yeah, look, I think when you look at this, it's interesting, right? I love the fact they brought in an edge coach this year with Jay Rodgers, right? Like, I know, again, it didn't work in Atlanta, but I just look back at some stuff, and Brandon Staley's last year in Los Angeles, Khalil Mack had 17 sacks, right? Like, he just had gangbuster season. But even going back when Staley was DC in 2020, Aaron Donald, 13.5 sacks. Leonard Floyd had 10.5 sacks. So I'm going to pick an edge guy. I'm going to stay with it. I like Brzee. I think Chase Young is somebody. Taylor's a bit of a wild card. And if they can learn how to unlock him and let him do what he does best, then I think he has an interesting shot. I don't think that's too far-fetched, but I'm going to go with Carl Granderson. Coming off a down year, very frustrating year for him, right? He had 8.5 sacks the year before this. I think he's somebody if you can get the line right, if you let him do what's best for him, I think Carl Granderson can be, I think he can end up getting into that double-digit category, right? I just feel like that's the direction and trajectory that he can go. I still like Chase Young to potentially be that, but man, if they can take Carl Granderson, I know he puts in a lot of off-season work and such. We know that, again, last year was tough, right? Like, I don't know if I'm not going to go into the story, but like, let me just say that Carl Granderson was one of the guys that was so happy when Ty Grantham got out. Let me put it that way, right? So, and it just shows how mixed messaging works and how coaching matters and all this other stuff. So I think that he's somebody, even if at 28, can still maximize his production. I feel like if they can get this run stuff set up, put some teams, and look, I think a lot of this can depend on how this Kellen Moore offense comes together, right? Because if you're putting the clamps down on some of these people early and you're playing your brand of football and you're able to do this, dominate some of the time of possession, put points up on the board, it puts a lot. Like, we've seen the Saints defense play their best when they have the lead, right? I remember that Bucs game where they just absolutely ate Baker Mayfield's lunch. I think of games like that. But the problem is they just haven't been as good of a team to do that and put themselves in that, right? They're always playing from behind, doing all this other stuff, but they need their defense to become, the force here. I think Carl can get into that conversation. So he's going to be my pick.
Yeah. I like that you highlight Jay Rodgers there. And just to back you up on the, hey, I know it didn't work in Atlanta thing. Nothing has worked in Atlanta for like 20 years, literally for 20 years when it comes to pressure, right? In terms of getting after the quarterback and everything like that. And so I don't think that was a Jay Rodgers problem. I think that was probably more of a team building problem or roster management problem, whatever it might be. But like, that's a team that's had the fewest sacks in the NFL over the range of the last 20 years. And so that's not a Jay Rodgers. I agree with you. That's not a Jay Rodgers, evaluation.
Yeah. Well, we've talked a lot about the Saints. I mean, we're just Saints squad. But next, we're going to talk about how they stack up with the rest of the NFC South. Scaling your business requires the right expertise at the right time. With Upwork, you can find specialized freelancers in marketing, development, design, and more experts ready to help you take your business to the next level. Are you feeling the pressure from your bosses to hire an exceptional employee? Well, Upwork might just be the spot for you. Because Upwork gives flexibility by connecting them with top freelance talent across multiple industries using IT, AI, web development, and marketing. Whether you need extra hands for a project or a long-term partner, Upwork makes hiring simple and affordable. Visit Upwork.com right now and post your job for free. That's UPWORK.com, Upwork.com, to connect with top talent and grow your business today. It's time to talk about everybody's favorite team, the Atlanta Falcons.
Who are you? No.
Sorry, Mike.
Why are you the way that you are?
Lance, how do you think that the Saints have done so far in preparing to compete in the NFC South, and how do you think that this offseason has gone for the other teams with the Saints in mind?
Well, I mean, it's obviously too early to tell, right? We're on the cusp of rookie minicamp, so we'll get our first look at Tyler Shuck to kind of see if he's potentially the guy that's going to be starting this year. A lot of us in this group think he will be. Not necessarily want him to be right away, but look, the reality is we're in the bottom of this division. We ended last season there. We're going to start this season there. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers have been a division champion a couple of years in a row now, so obviously that puts them at the top. The Atlanta Falcons, to me, are an ascending team. They're a team that I think has done a better job than us in drafting in the last couple of years. They have their quarterback, so there's going to be a little bit of consistency in that position and specifically on that offense. And Carolina and us at this point, it's a toss-up, honestly. Like Bryce Young was playing his best football ever at the end of last season, so it seems like they have their guy. Now, I'm not saying that we for sure are going to be in last place in this division, because like I said at the beginning of this little segment, the jury is still out. I don't know. We have a new coaching staff. There's a bunch of new players. There's a new draft class. Hopefully we got this one right, whereas we haven't gotten them right here in a long time. But I think we need to be realistic about our expectations. And it's going to be frustrating at times. And whether they want to call it a full reset or rebuild or not, this season is going to be part of that process as far as kind of out with the old and building something new. And I think some of the moves, or I would say a lot of the moves, are kind of proving that they're going to give Kellen Moore a chance, a little bit of time here. And it doesn't, to me, feel like we are in win now mode or else.
Yeah.
I think the Saints almost feel like the front office needs to experience being at the bottom for a little while. Like almost like they need to be convinced, like, oh, we aren't who we thought we were for a moment, just so that like they can finally make the decision to flip the switch and say, okay, maybe we do slow this down a little bit and stop trying to do all these big things or whatever. Like, I don't know. I don't think that they're ever going to do that. And I understand that. Maybe it's just wishful thinking on my part, but there is something about like the reality check of not being the team and then finally kind of having to face the music, which is kind of feels like what they have to be forced to do to a certain extent. But I don't know, maybe I'm wrong on that, but I feel like almost being at the bottom of the division is almost a good thing for Mickey Loomis in this front office to kind of have the reality check that feels like is so needed.
Well,
yeah,
I'm just gonna jump in. As I say, I'm with Lance. I just tired of all the talk. Like, I get hyping yourself up and all this other stuff. But
sure.
The reality is, like, they haven't beat the Bucs a lot. Like, they've lost 5 of the last 6 games to the Bucs. They only had that one at the end of the year where they like ended up winning because of mainly defense and all this other stuff. But it's just one of those. It's like, I think Tampa's still in the driver's seat here. I believed in them last year too, that I thought that they were going to be the guys that win the division. I think they're in firm control of the division right now. They've got a well-coached team. They have weapons. They don't have a ton of question marks. They have a very good stout roster, in my opinion. I think Atlanta is one of those teams that either Jekyll and Hyde. They may look good one week. They may look bad the next week. I still think that they could threaten the Bucs, be the most threatening competition. And then I'm with you on Carolina. I think they can be an ascending team because they figured out Bryce Young. The Saints don't have a quarterback answer right now. They don't have anything that we know of at the moment. The quarterback's most important position, quote unquote, that we've heard for years. If they can figure that out, then I feel like they can. They're a team of what ifs. If they can figure out the quarterback spot, if their defense can stop the run, if their defense can do this, if they can stay healthy, if they can get an offensive line that plays, if they can get after quarterback, there's just too many ifs for me to say, well, yeah, the Saints are going to win the division. I think that's delusional in my opinion. So it's just, I still see the Saints as this team who I don't want to sit there and say dead last or at the bottom, but they're definitely not in the top 2 conversation for me. And until they prove otherwise, like I'm not going to go through training camp, think that they can go beat the brakes off of these teams because they still got to go out and play it. Like they have not been able to beat superior competition in a long time. And so change my mind, right? Like that's kind of where I'm at. So it's on them. That's kind of, that's all I have to say about that.
And something I think that no fan or former player or journalist like wants to listen to the talk about their team not being amongst the elite. But honestly, if your team is not going to be one of those elite teams, and I'm talking maybe 10 to 12 teams who have a legitimate shot at competing for a championship, being in the middle is the worst possible place to be.
Right.
Because it's so hard to get better faster if you're in the middle. Like you either want to be one of those elite teams that are competing for championships, that are regulars in the playoffs, or you want to be at the bottom because the bottom tier teams usually have a better chance at getting better sooner than the teams that are riding right there in the middle. You know, your 7-8 win teams that aren't making the playoffs and generally are not getting top 10 picks. Like that's a tough place to be. And that's kind of where this team has lived for the last several years. And, you know, I'm not sitting out here saying that I want this team to lose all of its games. Like that's not at all what I'm saying, but it's hard to envision this team as one of those 10 to 12 teams that's going to be competing potentially for a championship. So if we're not one of those teams, like in order to get better faster, like we need to be at the bottom of this division, honestly. Like that's just kind of where it is. And, you know, this roster isn't a championship caliber roster, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I'm curious. I'm sorry, Dylan. I didn't mean to do that. I just, because I want to piggyback off something Lance said and ask him, where did you guys see yourself in 2011 and 2013? We're going to skip the asterisk year, but like, where did you see the team? Like when you came in, did you say, okay, we're the team to beat, we're the team, or did it just kind of come together as the year progressed? Or because I know Sean always said, focus on when you're
2011 was a way different situation than 2013. Like 2011, we were coming off of the disappointment of losing in Seattle in the playoffs in 2010, right? Where we played them at home and whooped them and really thought, well, this team was 7-9. Like we were angry that we had to go on the road, but those are the rules or whatever. So I feel like 2011, we came in with like the unfinished business, chip on our shoulder type of mentality. Whereas 2013, we knew we had a better team than what we put on the field in 2012 when Sean Payton was suspended. But you know, it wasn't as simple or it didn't kind of come together as quickly as it did in 2011. Like it just, I still to this day feel like that 2011 team is the best Saints team ever. Like
should have
and was so disappointing that we did not win the Super Bowl. Like 2009 was we were an early arrival team. Like we shouldn't have done what we did, but we did. But I felt like the 2011 team was the best team that at least I was on in my tenure in the Saints. And I felt like that was the team that far and away should have been the one that won the Super Bowl. And it really, to this day, talking to teammates that were on that team, it irks us to no end that we did not win the Super Bowl that year. So just kind of different mentalities. But I don't know that there's been a situation in my career that I was on a team that was in the situation that this Saints team is in. I mean, I guess you could kind of say, I mean, you can't even really say that because, you know, Hurricane Katrina year was a one-off and we were a 3-13 team, you know, so and this Saints team wasn't a 3-13 or 3-14 team last year. So, you know, but I will say that the expectations for 06 were not super high to begin with. You know, there was excitement and there was a buzz that was built knowing that we were reopening the dome and coming back to New Orleans in 06. But I don't know that anybody at the beginning of the year anywhere would have picked that Saints team to go on and compete in the NFC Championship game. So I guess they're similar in that mode that, you know, not a lot of experts or prognosticators are picking the Saints to go on and do great things this season.
Yeah. We can keep it a Lance heavy segment because I also wanted to ask you, since we're talking about the NFC South, what was it? Did it have a different feeling actually going from a player perspective, getting ready to play the Atlanta Falcons or the Tampa Bay Bucks or the Carolina Panthers?
So you're saying like a divisional opponent doesn't have a different feel? Yeah. I mean, I would say your preparation doesn't change, but it definitely has a different feel because there's familiarity there. Like it's usually teams build their rosters to compete and or beat the teams in their division. Why? Because you play those teams twice a year, every single year. So if your team is not built to beat or compete with the better teams in the division, you're probably not going to the playoffs, you know, because that's 2, 4, or 6 games that you're definitely going to be losing if you can't compete with those teams. And generally, if you're losing those, you're going to be losing other games as well. So there is a different feel. Can I put a finger on exactly what that feeling is? I don't think so. But the every game is important, but there is a different type of importance in those games because if you win your division, not only are you going to the playoffs, but you are hosting a playoff game. So yes, there absolutely is a different feel. And that's something that is talked about in the week of, you know, that game, you know, divisional opponent, I mean, you hear it over and over and over again. It's kind of ingrained in you when you go in and, you know, you don't like those teams. I mean, you really don't like any of the opponents that you play against as a competitor, but you especially don't like those divisional opponents and the games, especially the games on the road. Like if you can go and get one of those divisional games on the road, it's almost like a game and a half in your division because you know you have them coming back to play you again at your home. So yes, there's definitely a different feel and there's more talk about how important those games are than just your normal regular season game.
And I did want to give a shout out to one thing that the Saints did this offseason that I think immediately looked better. It was drafting Kelvin Banks whenever the Falcons went ahead and drafted 2 awesome pass rushers. So I think immediately they at least have a fun tackle duo to offset that pass rush
but that wasn't in response to the Falcons.
I know, but
no, it just worked out.
But it just worked out.
It worked out.
Falcons pass rush was horrible last year, so
it worked out.
Super bizarre.
I'll mention one positive around New Orleans in terms of like typically when I'm trying to take a look at whether or not a team can kind of turn around and how quickly that can happen. One of the things that I incorporate, it's not all on it, but one of the things that I incorporate is like 1-score games, your record in 1-score games and stuff like that. And this has been a big narrative from the Saints themselves as well, in addition to injury and stuff like that. But they were 2-5 in one-score games. A lot of people attribute one-score games to sometimes the coaching being sometimes the difference in those situations. I think it's more than that, but I know a lot of people contribute or attribute coaching at least as in part of what those decisions. What those conclusions end up being. And so if you look at the Saints roster, it's mostly the same with some additions, and then the rest of it is all about the coaching staff changes that they made. So if we accept the fact that if we accept the idea that the coaching staff should be better, and if let's say it this way, if the coaching staff is indeed better in 2025, then maybe there is that chance that they have a little bit more of a successful season. But the concern is kind of what Lance said. If you have a little bit more of a successful season and you're a 7 or an 8 win team, then you're just kind of suffering in the middle. And so you really would have to turn that around. You would have to turn those 5 losses into 5 wins and then be, that 9 or 10 win team in order for it to really matter. But it is one thing that's worth looking at and saying, okay, if there is a place where they could potentially perform better, if the coaching is indeed better, and if the quarterback play is there, which is probably the biggest question mark, because we don't know who the quarterback is, then maybe they can turn some of those things around in those one-score games. But then, what do they do in the others and all those other things? But just one little positive thing to maybe take out of where the Saints are amongst the rest of the teams.
There will be no positivity here. No.
I want to give like a little something.
Coming up next, we're going to be talking about some young players who will step it up next year and help them make that, rise into a 7-win team. It is time for our last segment, which is going to be talking about the young players on this team that have the most to prove. And I think I'm gonna just knock off the easy one, the big one. It's Isaiah Foskey, and I think that if it isn't this year for Foskey, I just don't think it's ever going to happen. Truthfully, he is, I think, a fit for the Brandon Staley defense in terms of at least what he did in college and what he could be as a player. I think he fits into that Khalil Mack and Leonard Floyd role. Obviously, he has not done anything to be in that same conversation with those players, but I think that he does fit that role and that style in this Brandon Staley defense. So I think that this is an opportunity for him to finally break through and be the player. It's so funny that whenever Foskey was picked, that everybody was like, finally, they picked a defensive end that is ready to play in the NFL and and is ready to contribute, and then he just hasn't. So I think that this is, in my opinion, the last chance. If he can't get it done in this defense, I don't see him turning it around. So I'm going to go with Isaiah Foskey.
It's a good one. That Viper role that he played at Notre Dame, where he had 22 combined sacks over his last 2 seasons there, allowed him to be more of that stand-up hybrid outside linebacker, edge rusher type and stuff. He should be right back at home in this defense, if that's the way they choose to deploy him. That's the other big thing here too, is the role is there, but is that what they ask him to do? You know what I mean? And so that's got to be the other piece. It's not like we haven't seen, teams in the NFL. New Orleans gets a lot of the focus on it, but it's not like we haven't seen teams in the NFL draft players that are good at one thing and then force them to try to do a different thing, and then they fail at doing that different thing. You know what I mean? It happens all the time. It's not just a New Orleans thing, but obviously New Orleans has some of the, when you have a guy like Zach Bond and all that go somewhere else and become a defensive player of the year candidate and everything like that, that's going to put a spotlight somewhere else. But that's going to be the big thing with Isaiah Foskey. So far, he's been asked to be a 5-tech run stopper, a 4-eye run stopper, and everything like that. And that wasn't his game in college. And so does he finally get the opportunity to do that, to play his role in a defense?
Yeah. Players over plays, or in this scenario, players over scheme, right? Sure, this is your scheme and you want this guy to play this specific role, but is he good at that role? Is that something are you asking him something that he cannot do? Or are you asking him to do something when he's much better at doing something else? I think that's a big part of coaching and decision making from the top down, as far as how you're going to deploy somebody. And you hit the nail on the head. Like Zach Bond is the perfect case of that. Like they wanted him to be an edge guy so bad here. Edge. He wasn't successful with that. Okay, we'll throw him out there on special teams. He goes to Philly. They put him on the inside, and all of a sudden he's first team all pro. So like that is a direct reflection on bad decision making. And hopefully for the kids' sake and for our sake as fans, like, and the team's sake, like they allow their guys, and not just Isaiah Foskey, but they allow all their guys to do what it is that they do best, because that's generally how you're going to get great play out of your players.
Yep, 100%.
So, yeah.
It's the Kellen Moore model, right? The Kellen Moore mold has always been figure out what their superpower is and have them do that.
Yeah.
Simple.
And I think with Foskey, I mean, you saw first year that they said I'm paraphrasing, but he thought too much, right? Like he thought about it too much. Second, in the offseason, Dennis Allen says, just go cut it loose. Okay. When you cut it loose version of yourself, puts you primarily on special teams. So it's just like, it's a really big offseason for him. And on a personal note, I saw he just got married. So congratulations to him. Not that he listens to our show or anything, but
definitely listens.
He listens. He and Kellen Moore have a group. He and Keenan Allen have a group chat.
Okay, yeah, of course. Right. I'm sorry.
Who that group chat?
Who that? Who is that?
Hey, stay away. Oh man, John, who is your pick for a player that should step it up?
I mean, I got 3, but we talked about 2 of them earlier. I mean, I just say it because we've talked about actually all of these players, right? But not without. I'll probably stick with Kendre Miller, but I also want to give tips to say or nods to Brian Brzee and Alontae Taylor. I just think those 2 are probably the ones that I would also include in this group. But Kendre Miller, man, he's got so much to prove here. Just the fact that the first year came in with the injury label. They try him out. He has some of these good games. New England against the Falcons in the finale. I mean, we've talked about him. Super talented, has a lot of the tools that can be successful on the next level. Then last year, again, with everything that happened, a new offensive scheme, maybe a little bit more running back friendly, quote unquote, definitely a lot more passer friendly in a lot of aspects too. But again, gets hurt in day 1 of training camp. And then it's just that bizarre cycle where it's like, again, Ross and I talked about this I'm not a medical expert. Lance probably knows a lot more about this than other, but we had kind of talked through this thing of like, when you hurt a hamstring and when you're coming back from a hamstring injury, sometimes it may lead you to overcompensate on the other. You have a risk of re-injuring, all these other different things that can happen to you. So it's like, I don't know if I give my all on this because my hamstring might flare up. Like there's just all these things. And I'm going on a tangent here, but I just think with Kendre, if he can come in, learn the playbook, get a fresh start. I think Joel Thomas is going to be a fantastic addition for this room, right? I'll just say that no matter who's in there, whether it's Devin Neal, Alvin Kamara, if it's Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Jordan Mims or anything, I think I think they had a great time last year with Derek Foster. I'm not saying he wasn't was a bad coach or anything. I just think Joel Thomas, though, has been doing this so long and he knows how to get the best from his players. And if Kendre can learn from him, be a little bit humble here and come in and just say, I just need to be the best version of myself and be available. That's all I need from him. Right. And he can be like, he's got to hear some of this noise about Devin Neal and some of these other running backs, but it's going to be on him. And I think he's got to have that chip on his shoulder and go out there, fresh slate, fresh start, new number, who this type of thing. Right. But I just feel like he's the guy for me that I would say, okay, he's got a ton to prove in this offense, and he's got a chance to shine because look, Kellen Moore's offensive attack last year, second in the league, 179.3 yards, I think is what they averaged a game. He's going to be an important part of that, especially because there's no Taysom Hill in this equation too.
Yeah, right.
So, I mean, it's on him, really.
Yeah. Lance, who's your guy?
So I mean, this is going to lead into my guy, but I have a question for John and Ross. Do you guys, I know that there has not been a word and they probably won't announce anything. Do you guys think that the decision for or about Derek Carr has already been made?
I think that it's leading to him not playing at all. Like I believe from what I've heard and stuff, I would be very shocked if Derek Carr plays a snap for the Saints and is there. Now, OTAs, things could change. I've seen a lot of information, but I feel like this is probably heading for a breakup in some aspects. Now, whether that's they release him or do something along the lines, or the fact that he's just on the shelf for the year and gets the shoulder surgery, whatever, I just don't see him playing this year. And I'd be absolutely stunned at this point if he comes back in any capacity.
Yeah, that's kind of where I am too, Lance, is that I don't think he's hitting the field in 2025.
I know what Lance
how they get that done or how they make that happen is going to be the big thing. Like I could see a world in which they say, oh, he's going to try to rehab. And in week 6, he's still trying to rehab. And then week 10, he's still working on his rehab. And then by the end of the season, it's like, oh, it just didn't work out. And then they have more like, a tidier split after the season or something like that. But like, I think it's the mechanism by which they get it done that's really the question mark. But I agree. I'm with John, and the stuff that I've heard is the same, that like, I don't see where this relationship gets repaired.
Yeah. I mean, to me, it's just such a strange situation, how the news was broken. The news that's been coming out recently, like, he's only been to New Orleans allegedly twice since the end of the season. Mm-hmm. Like, what is going on? Like, what exactly is happening? Okay, cool. We're moving on. And I'm moving on with Spencer Rattler.
There he is.
The guy. He's the guy that's going to step up. He's the guy that has taken the bull by the horns early in this offseason. I believe he's the guy that's going to be the first quarterback in that first team huddle as soon as the full team is together for OTAs. Are they doing a new coach mini camp? I mean, I guess they could have already done that. They're not doing that this year.
Don't think so.
I don't think so either.
Maybe they start a little bit earlier.
I still think I think he's going to be the guy that people are talking about less now with the draft selection of Tyler Shuck. He's going to have a little extra chip on his shoulder now, knowing that maybe he thought that it was going to be his job, and now he's going to really, really have to go out and earn it. And I think they'd be foolish to not see what they have in him. Tyler Shuck is obviously going to be around, right? Like, so it's not like you have to hurry and throw him onto the field. I don't know. I'm a Spencer Rattler guy. I am not an anti Tyler Shuck guy. Like, I want to say that. But I do think that Spencer Rattler has shown some flashes on a team last year that was not very good and could not do a great job of protecting him. Let's see what he can do with all of his guys around him. Like, I just think that we'll see the best out of him, and hopefully a guy that can, lock down that job and maybe just let Tyler Shuck sit and watch for a little while.
Yeah. I mean, if Spencer Rattler is able to come in and perform and win the starting job and look like a starting quarterback, even if the Tyler Shuck pick doesn't work out, I think that the Saints can talk themselves into not being too upset with the pick, because they still ended up with a starting quarterback. If they have a starting quarterback, nothing matters. Like, if they find that right starting quarterback, nothing's gonna matter. Take the shots until you get your guy, and if it's still Spencer Rattler, that's awesome, because he's a guy that I think we all agree we want to see succeed.
I mean, I'm not saying he hasn't earned or anything. I don't want to say earned, but I think he's put himself in a position to say, okay, yes, I can start in this and let Tyler Shuck come take the job from him. But I think Rattler should be that guy that starts off being that person for this team. Because again, I just don't see Carr in the mix at all. And just to clarify, because I've seen some comments, I didn't mean to say that Taysom Hill wasn't going to play at all this year. We're not going to expect him until probably October at best case, but his injury is a bad one. He's coming off a very big injury. In some aspects, I'd be surprised if he even gets back on the field in October, but this is a big injury for him. And so again, they're going to have to make do with at least half of their games probably without him.
Yeah. We're not talking just ACL situation here.
No, he'll be a pup. He'll be a pup guy, right? Like, I mean, he'll be that and all that other stuff, but
Ross, take us home with your your player most approved.
I'll try to be quick with this, which is not my skill set, but not a player that I think is like has something to prove, but I think will have a big opportunity and will need to step up to that opportunity. I think it's wide receiver Bub Means. Bub, I think, is in a position coming into the season, stay healthy and everything, to where, kind of like John mentioned, he kind of checks the box. The big body kind of guy. He's not like the most successful contested catch guy going back to his collegiate days and stuff like that. But I mean, we watch guys like Chris Olave and Rashid Shaheed get better in those categories. Can you do that with Bub Means as well? And so if a veteran is brought in, if a veteran is not brought in, I do think that there is something here for Bub Means to play up to. And so I don't want to take up too much time on it, but I just wanted to highlight him, and whatever new opportunity he has, whatever expanded opportunity he has, gives him something to perform up to. That's kind of my viewpoint on Bub. And I think he can do that.
And I think he's gotten off to that good start with, Tyler Shuck, building their relationship as soon as possible. And I think that, Bub Means would be another awesome guy. Like any of those, Bub Means, Moochie Dixon, any of those younger bottom of the depth chart wide receivers that can step up and earn some real playing time this year would be awesome.
Yeah. And he's already got a great connection with Spencer Rattler too. So like whichever one of those two young quarterbacks goes in, like he looks like he's building that chemistry.
Yeah. Well, thank you for listening to the Saint Squad. Check out me, Ross, John, and Lance on our socials for the latest. We'll be right back here Monday to continue talking about the Saints offseason. There'll be, some more rookie minicamp stuff to go through. It's going to be a fun little show. So thank you, and we can't wait to see y'all again.